Hey guys, what's up? I'm on Arts here, and today I'm going to be showing you guys how to make like kind of a vintage color correction effect using Photoshop. So this right here is the original image, and right over here is kind of the effect that you'd be creating. I don't really know if it's a vintage effect, but I think that's probably the closest thing that you could call it. And before I get into the tutorial, just real quick, I want to ask you guys if you'd be interested if I started a YouTube channel with Cinema 40, like easy to follow tutorials only. Cinema 40 tutorials only. So if you guys would be interested in that, just comment in the in this video so I know if I should start that. Anyway, let's minimize that. Let's get started. So open up Photoshop, and right now that picture I used was just a picture I took today in New York City. I have a lot of pictures, and I'm probably going to be using one of those, but just choose a picture that you like. Let's see some of these. I'm going to go into this view right here so I can see them better. See guys. Let's use this one right here that I got of a Lamborghini in New York City. Doesn't really matter what picture you use, just a kind of a landscapey picture. So I'm just going to open that with Photoshop, because that way it will kind of automatically keep the right proportions. Alright, so let's start off with doing kind of like a little color correction. So you got that layer right now. I think a good thing to do, I've seen it before, you're just going to right click and duplicate the layer. Doesn't really matter what you call it, just click OK. And drag that layer, or and just the first one, the original, just uncheck the eye thing, and that can just be your backup layer in case anything goes wrong. It's a good thing to do when you're in Photoshop. But anyway, let's just work with this one. Let's uncheck the eye so we're not getting mixed up here. And let's go do the background copy. And first, we're just gonna do a little color correction using curves. So click on this little half circle right here, and oops, yep, and click curves. And let's start with the blue curves. And this, I have to admit, I did get this from Chrome Designs tutorial, so I hope I'm not stealing your idea, man. But this is where I learned it. So you're just gonna drag this blue up about like that, up to the first line, and drag that blue right there down to the second line. And you can always experiment with these numbers, but I thought maybe I think it's cool if you make it a little bit more green, like that. So if you want to drag that curve down like that. And now you can go into your green. Let's just experiment. I think the green, let's just keep that the way it is. And for the red, you can do pretty much the same thing you did for the blue. Drag this top one down a little bit, but not all the way, maybe 2/3 or 1/2 down. And drag this point, just drag that about like 2/3 up, so you get something that looks cool like that. Alright, so after that, as you can see in this picture, you have that kind of light leaks effect on the side. So I'll show you how to make those. So let's do a new layer by clicking this button right here. And you're going to go to your gradient tool. And before we do that, let's just choose a color. So go to your color right here, the foreground color, and just make that red for now. Kind of a little bit darker red, something like that. And for under your gradient tool right here, make sure you have that selected. And you're gonna go into gradients and choose the second one, like one to the right, right here. So it's pretty much red on one side, or the color you have chosen, it should be red. And then it's just 100% opacity on the other side. And while we're at it, let's just do view and zoom out a little bit more so we have more room to do the gradients. If we start on the left side, just go to this go to the left side right here. You're just gonna click and drag out to like 1/6 of your image, or maybe even a little bit more. Maybe like 1/4 of your image. Maybe actually a little bit more. Maybe like almost halfway your image. So you get something that looks like that. And then you're gonna kind of do it from the other side, but you don't want to just do straight across. You want to maybe go a little bit up on one side and maybe a little bit down on the other side, so it gets kind of like random and it doesn't look kind of generic and boring. So maybe if you get something like that, just play around with the results. And let's rename the layer. Let's name that red. And just change the blending mode right here. Just change that to, I think, lighten. Yeah, that looks a little bit better. Alright, so now let's click that new layer button and add another layer. And this time, you're going to use that same gradient, but just change the foreground color to a yellowish orange, something that looks like that. And you're just going to click and drag, but not quite as far as you did for the other one, but kind of from the same angle. So just click and drag, but not quite as far. This one, I'll make it go down a little bit more. And for the blending mode on this one, let's do linear dodge add. So you get something that kind of looks like that. And I'm going to go back to my red layer and change the color back to red. Let's just add another one and let's just drag it out even more because I don't think it was quite enough. So just drag it out, maybe even halfway. And just do that so you get an effect that kind of looks like that. And I think that's already looking kind of cool to replicate those edges right here. This one's obviously a little bit more pink. And after you have that, you're almost done for those beams. Let's just call this one, change the name of this orange layer to orange, just so you don't get confused. Now let's add a third layer, and, or not the third, but let's just change this foreground color to white, or this color to white, and drag a gradient that's kind of doesn't go quite as far as the orange one. Not that little though, but just so. So yeah, that's good. So you get something that looks like that. This one's probably the least important, but it does kind of add something, so just play around with that. And you can make the blend mode lighten. I think that would be good. Alright, so after you got that, we're actually almost done. While we're at it, if you want to do this, you can go, this is optional, but you can go to your background copy, and just to get that kind of noise effect, or grainy effect, whatever you want to call it, you can go to filter, go to noise, and go to add noise. And I think we're going to check off monochromatic. You can just play around with the amount however much you want. You don't want to make it anything crazy. I think you want to have uniform checked off. Better. Maybe something about like 21. That looks good. And if you want to adjust to contrast, you can have that layer selected, go to image, adjustments, brightness, and contrast. And let's see, maybe give it a little bit more contrast. I think that's always better when you're doing a vintage like color correction. And pretty much the last thing we're going to do here, going to open up Safari, and as you can see, that really nice texture right there, this is optional. It's not really standard when you're doing a vintage effect, but I thought it was really cool. It's called a bokeh texture. So just search that up. It's B-O-K-E-H. And you'll get all these cool images. So go to images. And you can choose really whichever one you liked. I think I used this one right here. But just to not be original, let's try using this one right here. And we'll see how it works. And if it doesn't work well, we'll just use another one. So I'm just going to save image as. And let's go back to Photoshop and let's go to Finder. I'm just going to go to the folder where I saved it as. Just going to drag it into Photoshop. And now what we can do, we can just scale it up. Don't worry, it's not going to be that pixelated. It's going to click this little layer right here, and it's going to ask you if you want to place it, and you do want to place it. And let's drag this layer all the way up to the top. Alright, now what we can do, can go to the blending mode, and which one did I do? That might be it, color dodge. Yep, it was color dodge, and that just gives it that really cool effect. You can maybe move it a little bit. This might not be the best one because it's kind of in the center. So let's just uncheck that and see if we can find a better one. So let's go back and let's try one where the dots are a little bit smaller. Thinking this one might be kind of cool. Alright, so let's save image as and save it wherever you gotta save it. And let's go back here and let's go to Finder and let's drag that in again. Drag it right into Photoshop. And you can just scale it all the way up. And on this one, I think I'm just gonna rotate it and then fade it out a little bit. And just alright, and go to this tool here and it's gonna ask you if you want to place it. I'm gonna say yes to that. And again, let's just go to our blending mode and do color dodge. And that one is definitely a much better choice. And maybe if you want to make the opacity a little bit less, so it's not as strong as of an effect. It's really up to you to what Phil does. Let's try making maybe the fill a little bit less. But that's really up to you. I'll give the link to that image, that bokeh texture that I use in the description. And if you want to export this image, or save it as a JPEG, you're just going to do save and give it a name. I'm going to call this Vintage Color Correction 2. And you can save it as a JPEG format. And just do save, forget what it says, and just make that large size maximum. And do OK. And yeah, guys, that's how to do a vintage color correction with that cool texture in Photoshop. Surprisingly, not Cinema 4D, which I usually make tutorials on, but I guess this is my first Photoshop tutorial. Hope you guys like it. Please like the video. Please subscribe. Please comment about whether you would like to see a channel for Cinema 4D tutorials. Thanks for watching, guys.